All right, we're back in. We had a little bit of a snafu there. Our live stream ended from the first three quarters, but time to take a little reset and for us to bring in Bill Zimmerman here to be the closing voice here. So Bill Zimmerman, Bears banter host, going to be coming at you once again. Bill, welcome.
JB, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. Talking a lot of football to a lot of good podcasting voices tonight makes me feel good. Makes me feel really good about what we're going to be putting out on Second City Gridiron this year. And I'm just excited. I'm excited to be talking football with you. I put you in the last spot because we don't get to talk enough together because we kind of do the same thing. We kind of host and talk to other people. And so it's nice to be able to get an opportunity to talk to you. So I was hoping that you could kind of
what I thought was going on was that, 5 years of Bears over beers. I've never been on as a guest. The first time EJ just disappears, bam, I'm on. So my conclusion is that EJ doesn't like me.
Yeah, well, you need to take that up with him. Although I think that he would say quite the opposite, that he was always very complimentary of you and the start that you gave him. But tonight's my night to hand over the keys to Ryan and to Kyrie and to Jacob. They're going to be taking that show on Wednesdays this year, and we're really excited for what they can do with it. And I think that if you listen to the first part of this episode, you see why we're excited about them. They add some new voices, some new thoughts to the mix, and we're excited to bring them into the family.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Second City Gridiron, we're rolling. Got, basically new podcasts almost every day during the football season, and it's just going to be a great place for people to get Bears content.
So we've been going through some questions, and I've been kind of holding off. I've just been responding to what people have been saying. So I will give my answers on this segment with you. But the first question is, what are you most excited about for the 2024 Chicago Bears?
All right. Well, I'll give you two answers because number one, I'm most excited about Caleb Williams. And I know, and that's why I'm going to give you two answers because that's the cliche. That's the obvious answer, whatever you want to call it. But that's exactly what it is. I mean, how can you not be excited about Caleb Williams? This is the number one overall pick in the draft. I mean, I feel because I've been saying these things for 8 months, I just feel like I'm just repeating myself over and over again. But again, I keep saying it. 105 years of Chicago Bears football. They have never had a prospect of this level ever because it's quarterback, and as good as Luckman, Lane, Lou Jack, McMahon was a top 10 pick. Doesn't matter how good those guys were. They were not number one consensus, especially when you start thinking about scouting and how that has changed. To me, the scouting process really has only been modern since the 1980s. And that's why I think John Elway is the first great QB prospect. And I've talked to people, you don't think I know what I'm talking about. That's fine. I've talked to people that I know what they're talking about. People that have won Super Bowls in front offices. And they tell me, some guys might have Caleb third or fourth all time in terms of prospects, fifth. Some guys may have him 8th, 9th, 10th, but he is basically a consensus top 10 all-time quarterback prospect. So when I look at this and how can you not be excited? How can you not be excited for Caleb Williams, especially now that he's been a member of this team for 4 months? And if any Bears fans had any reservations because of anything they may have heard previously on the internet, all of it has been debunked. All of it. His teammates, his coaches, everybody's talking about how he's a great asset already to this team. He was named a captain. So the whole thing is just awesome, and I am just excited about it. So obviously that is number one. And related to that, but what I am most excited about is, I mean, look, I love the trenches. I love good defense. I love old school 3 yards in a cloud of dust football sometimes. I love all that stuff. But I have only seen the Chicago Bears flirt with what I would truly call a modern, strong offense. Maybe like 2 seasons in my lifetime. Eric Kramer's, of course, season in the 90s where the Bears had 2 1,000-yard receivers on the same team. That seems impossible for the Bears. And then, of course, the Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey teams. So what I am most excited about, and I'll just narrow it down to this, I am most excited about the Chicago Bears skill position players. The fact that they are truly 3 deep at wide receiver, and Tyler Scott, and he did not have a good rookie season. He still has issues. He could develop into something, but Tyler Scott as your 4th receiver, That's fantastic. Gerald Everett, I think, is going to be a much improved move tight end for this team. Cole Kmet keeps improving. Even the running backs, I think DeAndre Swift is going to fit into what they want to do well. Shane Waldron, I have far more confidence in him than I did in Luke Getsy. And, as much as I was a Matt Nagy guy and thought Matt Nagy would have that modern offense here, we know that didn't work. So truly, I am excited what this offense is going to be. And that Bears fans are going to have these elite receivers and pass catchers that this is just not it's foreign to us. It's like watching a French film without subtitles. Like we don't understand what we're going to be watching here this season. So that's just exciting to me that this is truly a football built for the modern era, a football team built for the modern era.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I think that quarterback is the answer. And I think that for us and a few of our colleagues, I think that we can honestly say that back in December, we saw that this was the path that was going to happen. We said as much on our shows that once the number one pick was clinched by the Carolina Panthers, that this was the path, that there wasn't any chance. We got questions every week in our show. Lester and I got a question every week in our show, and EJ and I on this show. Is there any chance for Justin to save his job? What does he have to do to come back next year? And it was like, it's over, guys. Like it's over. Like I just don't see any other path for that to happen. And we should be excited about this because this is an incredible prospect. And this offseason has been exhausting. At least the first part of the offseason was exhausting with all of the what's going to happen and the two camps and the fighting with each other and just this like over. There was plenty of people that were trolling just to get clicks on Twitter and throwing flames on the fire. And then you had, these personalities in the national media that are just coming in and they're fanning the flames, and Bears fans are just really hopped up and at each other. And it was just, as a content creator, it was a miserable offseason. It was a miserable offseason. I just needed to get through it. But every day, once you got past the draft and you started to see the person, the human that Caleb Williams is, and how excited Ryan Poles is for this prospect, because he's doing his work. Like this is his career. This is Ryan Poles' whole career right here. Now, yes, I think we're going to look back on this and be like, well, this was a no-brainer, but he still had to go through everything. He still had to do all the work. And so as a fan, I think I'm just going to hopefully we can just wipe our minds of how difficult this few 6 months was at the beginning of the year, and how much just consternation there was in the fan base, and just think back fondly of having this a generational prospect. I know no one likes that word, but this prospect that gets named in the same breath as Andrew Luck and John Elway and Peyton Manning. Like that's what I think we're going to come back to. And so that's exciting, because it would be exciting to watch him in the National Football League. Like I like the National Football League. I like following the league. A prospect like that comes in, I'm excited to watch that prospect. He happens to play for my favorite football team that I cover. So that's amazing. That's the answer. But if you, like you say, if you're going to give two, and I think you're right, that in about a month, I think I'm going to be able to officially say that Rome Odunze is my favorite player, because I'm excited about him, but I just wanted to actually see him play in an NFL game before I announce it. Right. But I'm super excited. I think that everything about him is great. We've been talking about this secondary and how good and elite this secondary could be. We were talking about it early last year, like before the year started. I was like, hey, this could be the strength of the football team. And if these guys take steps, this could be a really interesting unit. And some of those guys are taking the steps. Like Tyreek Stevenson had a really good second half to his rookie year. He was coming on. If he shows out in his sophomore year across from Jalen Johnson, who's established himself as one of the best corners in the league, now you've got a tandem that's fantastic. Kyler Gordon looks like he's flying around the field, agent of chaos kind of guy. You've got Brisker, who I know some fans, get a little bit sensitive about, but because he's a talker. But if you're winning games, DBs that are talkers are good. All of a sudden, this secondary looks like the best in the league. And some of these national guys that look at this stuff, that really know defenses, that know all 32 units, are talking about the Bears having the best secondary in the league. That's really exciting. When you have units, entire rooms that are being talked about at the top of the entire league, that's when you start to win a lot of games. And that's when you start to maybe actually make a little noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you said. The secondary is really exciting to me. even if there are injuries, obviously that would slow the secondary down, but the depth at the secondary is outstanding. Jonathan Owens is a solid third safety. You know, Smith and Jones and Blackwell, I mean, and even Stewart on the practice squad. I mean, these are guys that look like legitimate NFL players, potentially guys that would start on, even if it's 5 or 6 teams or 8 teams, that's still a 20-25% of the league. That's great. If Jalen Jones or someone like that was able to start for 5 or 6 teams, that's impressive that he is sitting there and isn't going to get a lot of reps. So I agree with you. I think the only thing that can stop this secondary is a lack of a pass rush, because I know some Bears fans are excited. I know Hardy flashed. I know Booker flashed. I get all that. But until I see these guys doing it against elite tackles on Sundays, I am going to have concerns about this team. And if Montez Sweat misses any time, I don't see that having any ability to get pressure on the quarterback. So I am really concerned about the D-line, and I think that is the only thing that can stop this secondary.
Now, is that the answer to the next question, which is what is keeping you up at night? Or is there something else that you might add to this? Like what can spoil this season for you? Obviously injuries anywhere can kind of do that, but like, is there something that we think, maybe this works, or Ryan Poles thinks, I think this will work, but it just doesn't? What is it that's keeping you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would say the defensive line, because I have concerns about the offensive line, JB, but what offsets that for me is that I really like the Bears' second unit on the offensive line, especially on the interior, where we know the interior is where the biggest question marks are, right? We've got Coleman Shelton. We're not quite sure what to expect out of him at center. I mean, he had a good year last year with the Rams, but it's not like he's a $10 million a year guy. We've got Nate Davis, see if he's actually plugged in and interested in playing once the regular season hits. And you got Tevin Jenkins, who I know everyone was sharing the quote today. Tevin Jenkins that says, "This is the healthiest I've ever been in week 1 of my entire career." Well, Tevin Jenkins, this is only his second week 1 he's ever played in. He's missed 2 of them. So of course it's probably the healthiest he's ever been. So when you have those question marks along the interior, having Ryan Bates, having Bill Murray, having Matt Pryor available there, that doesn't make me as nervous as much, because if Nate Davis goes out or Tevin Jenkins goes out and Ryan Bates steps in, even if both of them are out and it's Ryan Bates and Bill Murray at the guards, I'm not that concerned. Yes, it's not where you want it to be, but while I don't love the offensive line's high end in terms of the top unit, I love the second unit. So I think barring certain injuries like Darnell Wright or whatever, I think they can cover most of their injuries on the offensive line. The defensive line, so if you want me to get really specific, I will say the depth of the defensive line is what has me up at nights. Like, just the idea, if Montez Sweat misses just 3 games, how are the Bears, unless they're just bringing 2-3 guys constantly, like not just blitzing one guy, they're going to have to blitz multiple guys. None of these guys can get home if you don't have Montez Sweat drawing doubles on one end. So that's where I am. I think Javon Dexter is a solid player. I think he's going to be a solid player, but I do not think, and I know this is a minority opinion, I do not think Javon Dexter is going to become this disruptive 3-tech. I love what Andrew Billings can do, but Andrew Billings is not a well-round, he's not a guy who's going to be, collapse in the pocket consistently on third downs. That's not his role. Zach Pickens, I know he's banged up right now, but even if he was healthy, I don't trust Zach Pickens. So I don't, especially at D tackle, I don't love the depth. I don't even know why Dominique Robinson is still on this team. If he plays well in the regular season, I'll be shocked. I got everyone in my mentions. Oh, he's having a great training camp, a great preseason. He flashed a couple plays. I don't care. Do it in the regular season. He played well against the 49ers, his opening game of his rookie season, and has been bad. Not, he didn't have a great game. Bad in every game since. So he'd have to make huge strides. So defensive line depth, where if they get a top end injury on that D line, JB, they cannot handle it.
Yeah, I think, going back to what you're talking about with the offensive line, it's like they've got a high floor because they've got this the starters are going to give, like, they're professional starters. There's not like an obvious hole
It's a
where,
top 20 unit.
yeah, it's fine. Like, it's better than it's been in the past, right? So it's got this like higher floor than you're used to, but the ceiling's maybe not as high as you want. Now you can you want to make the argument that Darnell Wright comes, he's a top 10 pick, right? Darnell Wright comes on, Tevin Jenkins is as good of a guard as there is when he's healthy and all that. That maybe you can pump that up, but this is like kind of a crawl space, right? Like, it's a high floor, it's a low ceiling. Like, there's not a lot of room to stand, right? But whereas, like, you're talking about the secondary, we're talking about cathedral ceilings. We're talking about best unit in the league. We're also talking about a really high floor. Like, because if some of these guys miss time, you're really happy with the backups. You're really happy that these guys can come in and play good snaps for you, and you can withstand, a 3-week injury from Jalen Johnson, right? Like, that's really impressive that you have that much depth and that much talent. It's kind of rare to see both. And so that's why we love talking about the secondaries, because everything seems to be, it's not just this, glass cannon, right? Where, like, one guy goes down and you're like, it's over, right? It's broken. No, this thing could go on, and it's really going to be the strength of the defense. And we'll see what that looks like if they know how to lean into that and really play off the strength of having that back seven be as good as it is.
Yeah. Like, you talk about cathedral ceilings. It's the Legion of Boom. Like, that's the ceiling for this.
It's a nickname unit.
I'm not saying they're going to get there, but that's literally the ceiling. And that's what we're talking about. How good can they be? They can be that kind of secondary. And guys, let's not forget, none of them are gone next year. Every single player is under contract.
Yeah. It's a nickname, potential nickname unit. That's how good it is. Yeah. So absolutely. Yep. I'm glad that we're setting that expectation too, because again, we've been talking about it for a long time, and in the national media catching up a little bit, which is great, but also, like, let's be realistic about it. It's not just like, they're going to be pretty good. No, this team could be, this unit could be.
If it was allowed, I would give Kyler Gordon an extension right now. And I'm saying this, I would make him the highest paid nickel. I know Michael Carter just got the 333 highest paid nickel. Give him 336. Make him the highest paid nickel. Lock him down right now. I have no concerns with that.
I think he's first in line at the end of the season. Yeah, I think he's going to be first in line.
I keep telling on my podcast, I keep saying, I think Brisker is the guy that gets iced out of a potential extension, like Adrian Amos did. It wasn't Adrian Amos' fault that he didn't get extended. They just literally couldn't keep everyone on the defense.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. So what's a 2024 successful season look like for the Chicago Bears? It could be a record. It could be a vibe. It could be anything in between. What is it when it's March and we're looking back on this team that you're like, I'm good. I got what I needed?
Yeah, and I actually brought this up exactly. It was on one of my mailbag questions for my podcast that was out this morning with Aaron Lemming. You can go check that out on the either of the feeds, the audio or video feeds for Second City Gridiron. And what I talked about for successful season is I want them to make the playoffs, and making the playoffs is obviously a successful season. But if they're competitive and miss the playoffs, with the caveat, and I know we talked about this in 2022. I know we've talked about this in 2019. I know we've talked about this in 2023. If the Bears' young quarterback proves that he is truly a franchise quarterback, if the team's success isn't quite where it needs to be, it doesn't matter to me, because everything is pointed in the right direction. I do not expect the Bears to win a Super Bowl this year. Would 10-7 and they upset a team in the wild card round and make it to the divisional round, would that have me doing backflips? I'd be thrilled. But like I said on my podcast, if they go 9-8 and are basically the 8th seed in the NFC and miss the playoffs, but Caleb Williams throws for 4,000 yards and 25 touchdowns, am I upset at the end of the year? No, of course not. So to me, winning, 8-9 and Caleb Williams does 4,025. I'll still say it's a success because of how important the quarterback is. I'll be a little bummed that they only improved by one game, but any kind of improvement on the overall team with Caleb Williams making the exclamation point that the Bears truly have figured out the quarterback position, that's the successful season.
We are 100% in agreement. This is going to be a boring segment if we're going to keep agreeing like this, but that's
all right. Let me get some sizzling takes for me next time.
There have been seasons. Okay, so 2019 was it the year that the Bears made it to the playoffs as the first 7 seed, and they were.
No, that was 2020. That was 2020. The Saints loss was 2020. 2019 they went 8-8 and just didn't make the playoffs.
And it was like, was that a successful season? Like, did you feel like, hey, they made the playoffs? Is that a success? Like, that didn't feel like a success. That felt like that ship was just sinking, right? And so there are times, like I'm saying this to say, the answer of they made the playoffs is a successful. I'm not sure like that's right. If you come out of this season and it's a defensive led team and Caleb just hasn't really looked like the guy, but they win enough games because they win some games on defense and they just do enough on offense and they just kind of like limp into the playoffs and they're an easy out and they're gone. Is that a successful? You made the playoffs. Is that a successful season? I don't think so. Like we've seen that year before, right? And so for me, like just saying like make the playoffs, like that's not what I mean. That's not what I want out of this team. What I want to be able to say is Caleb Williams is a dude. Like no doubt about it. We've seen it. You saw that in Joe Burrow's rookie year. You just saw it with CJ Stroud in his rookie year. Justin Herbert when he got the unexpected opportunity to start with poor Tyrod Taylor, and really quickly it was like, oh, Justin Herbert, he's a dude. Like you see it and you know it. I want that. And I think all of the other things that happen, football bounces in funny ways and all that can really impact specific games. And that may not add up to enough wins to make it into the playoffs. Lovie Smith got fired in a year where, he lost some tiebreakers and that's why he got knocked out. The Bears got knocked out of the playoffs. He went 10-6. That's a playoff team. It was a good, solid team, right? And so I always hesitate because I've seen enough football seasons where the end result is just kind of weird. And so I don't want to put the like, oh, it has to be this thing for in terms of record or in terms of playoffs or no playoffs. Obviously, I'm predicting them to win 10 games. I think that's good enough in the NFC to make the playoffs. So I'm predicting that. But what I'm predicting is that it's a really good defense. And then this offense comes along with the weapons, with Caleb Williams' development. And we're going to know that he's a dude. And if all of the things work together and the pass rush isn't as bad as we fear it might be, the offensive line holds up. I mean, there is a higher ceiling than 10 wins. Like there's an opportunity, but I think at the end of this season, you want to be able to have this excitement that the Houston Texans fan base is feeling now and coming into this year, or the Lions fan base was feeling coming into last year. Certainly they're feeling very excited this year because they're Super Bowl contenders. But last year they had this feeling like, hey, we could be a conference championship team. And I think that's what the Houston Texans are feeling right now. I want to have that feeling for the Chicago Bears going into 2025.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to put it. And just coming off of some of the points that you said, like that 2020 team that made the playoffs, that Mitch heater in December and squeaking into the playoffs. I mean, I'm going to sign up for everything now because I love where the Bears are. And if you change history, butterfly effect, who knows where they would be this year. But that really screwed them up making the playoffs because we all know how bad that 2020 team was. It had no business being where it was. It snuck into the playoffs at 8-8. They lost like everyone expected them to. And if they went 7-9 and missed the playoffs, I'm convinced Nagy and Pace were going to be gone. George McCaskey, who makes decisions in a very limited way, goes, how can I fire my coach who just made the playoffs? Like, that's where that was. I'm convinced that that's where that was. So that really screwed them up. Like I said, now, again, if they had made the earlier hires, then maybe they don't have Ryan Poles because he's not ready yet. And if you like what Poles is doing, they don't draft Justin Fields. Yeah, everything changes, right? So that's an entirely different situation. But when you talk about a defensive team that makes the playoffs, like a Lovie Smith team with Rex, that kind of thing. I mean, if Caleb Williams throws for 3,200 yards with 20 touchdowns and 15 interceptions, like we're going to sit there and go, okay, we saw some flashes. We're going to start convincing ourselves, right? And the alarm should be going off because Ryan Poles has done such a good job. And Caleb Williams is so pro ready compared to some of these other guys. If we are in December comparing Caleb Williams to how Josh Allen entered the league, like we did with Justin Fields for 2 years. Well, Josh Allen. I did it. You did it. We all did it because we're like, it can be a slower curve. If Caleb's on that curve, we're in deep shit. And I don't swear that often, but that's the situation. We have set this up, or I shouldn't say we, the Bears, Ryan Poles has set this up so well that if it's not working on offense, it's going to be how is this getting fixed? What are we going to do? And I'll be honest, if it doesn't work at quarterback this time, I will just assume that it never will.
I mean, that's the answer, right? Like it's over. Like we're gonna have to move on and just have a different focus. I'm just gonna be the guy that tracks all punts in the league or something. That's what I'm gonna do because it's clearly not waiting for the Bears to win a championship in my conscious lifetime. Bold prediction for this year. So this is individual side of the ball, a unit, Bears in general, or it could be outside the league. Something that you think you can see happening, but you don't see it's being talked about.
All right. Let's see. I'll try and come up with another one while I give this first one. And this first one is going to be that something that has never happened in 105 years is happening this year for the Chicago Bears. Never in 105 years. And I'm guessing a lot of people listening right now are going, yeah, it's going to be that. Yeah, it is that. Caleb Williams throws for 4,000 yards. I've done statistical predictions. I put him less than that. I put him at 36, 3,700. I'm really pleased with everything I've seen in training camp. I'm going to buy into the hype. I'm going to just dive into the homerism. And I'm just going to sit here and go, this guy's throwing for 4,000 yards. Might be 4,032. I'm not saying he's throwing for 4,400 yards, but he is going to get to 4,000 yards. And I'll tell you what, I could see Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus. If the Bears are able to have a little fun in week 18, wherever they are, they've made the playoffs or they're not going to make the playoffs, whatever it is. If Caleb Williams is sitting there with 3,688 yards, I think they're going to look at it and go, let's fricking go for it. Like, I really think that it would matter that they could sit there and be like, hey guys, our quarterback has done something that no quarterback has ever done, and it was his rookie year. So I think they could air it out in week 18 in a blizzard to try and get him 300 yards. So I think Caleb Williams throws for 4,000 yards, and us as Bears fans can sit there and go, this is it. They have a quarterback. He's going to be quarterbacking this team for 10, 15, 20 years. If Caleb Williams gets his ways, it may be 25 years, which how great would that be if he does pull a Brady, which he says he wants to do. So we'll see. So that is the first bold prediction. I will give you one more bold prediction. The Kansas City Chiefs do not win the Super Bowl. You should never pick against Patrick Mahomes. That is, you pick 31 other teams, but I will say the Kansas City Chiefs will not win the Super Bowl. I don't have a prediction for you. I can give you a team if you want, but I really, and I know fans love Xavier Worthy, and he's going to have some great connections with Patrick Mahomes where he just blitzes past everyone, got 3 yards on the defender, and it's an 85-yard touchdown. There's going to be some great plays, but I just sitting here, the way they got through things last year, the defense is a year older. I have concerns. The AFC, every team seems to be getting a little bit better. The Chiefs kind of keep slowly coming back to the pack. They kind of need a reset. And I think the Chiefs almost, they need an opportunity where they don't win so they can sit there and kind of maybe move off some pieces, get some youth, open up a little cap space, and try and kind of reset things a little bit, kind of like Buffalo did this year. I kind of think that's what Kansas City needs to do and kind of get the Patrick Mahomes 2.0 kind of thing. Like Tom Brady, we saw, like there was the early years of Tom Brady where you had the defensive oriented teams and he was considered the game manager. Then you get into the middle years, with Randy Moss and the really elite offense. You get into the later years where it evolved a little with Julian Edelman, and Brady was limited and he kind of just knew how to get the best out of what he could do. Like, Mahomes needs his 2.0. He's entering that time where he needs a 2.0, but I'll say that Kansas City loses and Caleb Williams throws for 4,000 yards.
And it's like a not bold prediction, but it sounds crazy to say it because right now it's like really insane to bet against Patrick Mahomes. And so I think that's funny. That's a funny, bold prediction.
I mean, JB, as a guy who loves history, I have Mahomes number 2 all time already for quarterbacks.
I mean,
and it took me a long time to give Brady the nod over Joe Montana. It took me probably the 6th Super Bowl for me to do it for Tom, but I got Mahomes. I think it's already decided. He's over Montana. He's over whatever Rodgers, Unitas, Otto Graham, whoever you want to put there. Yeah, I think he's 2.
I mean, it's hard to argue, to be quite honest. And then, that's a different podcast, right? The whole Brady career thing, because the first 3 are so defensive dominated, and he obviously was the quarterback, and he probably would have been in the Hall of Fame. He certainly would have been in the Hall of Fame if his career ended with that knee injury, right? Like that's a thing. Like he would be a Hall of Fame quarterback. But what he did later in his career, where he really carried those Patriots teams with more offensive heavy, and the great Belichick game plans from here and there. Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting career to break down, but Mahomes is just, I mean he's amazing. That arm talent, and then just this drive. I think it's the Ravens year in the AFC. That's not exactly a bold prediction, honestly, either, because they've got a high over under. I think they're ready. I think they're going to be so interesting with like a speed power contrast and offense. I love their defense. I think Roquan's just such a beautiful fit there. I think the Ravens are going to be a lot of fun to watch. My bold prediction, kind of teased it previously. I think Rome Odunze leads the receiving core in touchdowns. I think he's going to have a lot of.
Okay, if you were about to say yards, I was about to go. Come on now.
No. I think it's touchdowns. I think he's going to have a bunch of big plays. I think that they're going to really have a rapport. DJ Moore traditionally, I mean, I know he got into the end zone a few times last year. Traditionally, he doesn't score a ton of touchdowns. Keenan Allen, not a guy who scores a ton of touchdowns. So I think that given his size, given his big playability, and maybe some shot plays, I think that Rome is going to lead the receiving core in touchdowns.
Will he lead the team, or you got Swift?
Oh, the team. I'll say that he'll lead the team in touchdowns.
All right. I like that bold prediction. I would think it'd be DeAndre Swift, just kind of, the amount of touches he's going to get. But yeah,
well,
I mean,
catches, touchdown receptions.
Touchdown receptions. If you told me I had to bet on someone, and obviously I don't know what, depending on what people were putting as the odds, I would probably take Cole Kmet. That would be kind of my interesting look at that. And I think Caleb Williams is going to be the right kind of guy to utilize Cole better in the red zone. I think they're going to figure out that connection. But DJ Moore is the obvious one, because he does get the touchdowns in bunches. He had the 3 touchdown game with Washington, but I like the Odunze thing. But yeah, I would roll money at Kmet if I had to come up with a guy.
I think Kyrie kind of brought that up. That was what he was excited about too. He thinks Cole's going to take the next step. So, well, that's what we have. This was me talking to a lot of different people for the last couple of hours. Everybody hopped on for a little segment. And I just want to say again, how excited I am to be part of this team, and all of the great work that we're going to have. And I think there's going to be Bears stuff coming at you from this channel every day. Like you're going to have more than enough stuff to keep you afloat in a very exciting season. And so excited to bring some of that to you. Again, I'll be on Mondays with Lester for Bear and Balance, 6 o'clock, unless of course they play Monday, and then we'll be on the next day. Bill's going to be with Bears Banter in the middle of the week. Anything specific you want to talk about with Bears Banter?
Yeah, like I said, the current episode is up. It's with Aaron Lemming. It's good. It's like an hour, 40 minutes. There's plenty of me. There's plenty of Aaron. We went, and again, Aaron and I have been doing this since long before either of us were with Windy City Gridiron. I've been doing my podcast. I believe the first year was 2016, and I had Aaron on to do the season preview in 2017. And he's done this same spot every year. Like it's become the tradition. And the one thing that I'll say from that spot that I really liked is because he and I were on the same page last year. And I remember because a couple people brought it up in my mentions, that Aaron and I both said when we did this interview a year ago, that there was something off with the team. Something was wrong. They just they weren't ready for the regular season. And we both had the same vibe, and it was just terrible that it came to fruition like that. We feel the exact opposite right now. I think this team is really ready to go. So position groups, we really take a dive into the team. So check that out. And, I don't have specific guests lined up yet for for each week, but you're going to see the usual cast of characters, I would think, throughout the season. I want to wait a couple weeks. Patrick Manley always comes on. I want to get Patrick Manley on early this year after a couple weeks. I want to talk kickoff with him, kind of get his thoughts on where that's headed and what he's seen with that. But, Sylvie, should be on. Danny Parkins, I know he's moved on from the Score. I would expect Danny to be on, and the regular beat people that come on, Adam Johns, Courtney Cronin, Brad Biggs, like they'll all be kind of rotated throughout the year. And you never know. I always try and go for some splashes, some big surprises from time to time. I had Peter King on, so we'll swing at those from time to time, and maybe we'll get lucky. But yeah, you'll have to endure me for 15, 20, 25 minutes, and then you get rewarded with a great guest.
Awesome stuff. I love it every week. And, hopefully you won't be yelling too much. You'll be more.
Well, that's up to the Bears, JB. There may be some excitable yelling, but Matt Eberflus, don't blow impossible leads to blow this year. Don't make stupid decisions with the draft. Don't leave Justin Fields out to dry in 2022. Don't give me reasons to yell and I'll stop. Fan base, don't tell me I'm wrong because Ryan Pace said Mitch Trubisky was the starting quarterback for 2020 in January, and y'all told me I was wrong, that they weren't going to bring in a legit QB, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully we're past that era. We're past that era, and we have good yelling, positive yelling.
Hopefully I'm just jumping up and down and I'm just jiggling. Then you'll have to divert your eyes like that. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for.
Yeah, we won't. We'll have to have the video come with a warning when that happens.
Yeah, well, maybe those will be audio only weeks.
Yeah, audio only. Love it. All right, well, thank you everybody. I appreciate it so much. I know this was a longer show. We won't generally go over 2 hours, but I wanted to make sure everybody got an opportunity to get on, give a couple points of what they're excited about for the season. And again, really excited about what we have. And until we get some actual Bears football, and I will see you guys on Monday, bear down.
Bear down.